Hello and welcome back to Bourbon Barrel Talk. I'm your host, Scott Minton. Today we are with our friends at Origin Park, and they are doing a special event. So we are with their Director of Development, Dave Bell, and then also was able to go on the pick. We have Phil Collin, which is the host of Bourbon Adventures, and he does Phil Talks Whiskey. How we doing, fellas?
Splendid.
Fantastic.
Good to be here. Hello, Dave.
Hey, good to see you again, Phil.
Hey, Scott.
Hey. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Origin Park, and then for people that maybe aren't from the southern Indiana or the Louisville area, and maybe a lot of people in Louisville have no idea what Origin Park is, but I would say it's probably what's going to be the next national park. That's just my opinion. I might be right, might be wrong. But Dave, you know more about Origin Park than anybody else in the room. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what's up with Origin Park?
Yeah, I can tell you that. And yes, we do have grand dreams of this potentially getting to that level. But where we are now, Origin Park is a 430-acre green space located on the banks of the Ohio River and within the Clarksville town limits. And so over its history, it has been the home to junkyards and landfills and industrial places because it is located in a flood zone. And I guess it's outside of the Clarksville levee system, so it floods on an annual basis. So not a lot of viable businesses could be on the space. And so about 10 years ago, a group of individuals from this area began dreaming of what they could do with that space. And so the idea for Origin Park came out of it. And so over this last 9 years, we have been acquiring land. And so now of the 430-acre park footprint, we control about 80% of that. And so
wow.
we broke ground on our first building in November. It's our 350-person event space. And so that will open in early 2026. And so we are planning that part. And then our next big thing with the park is to begin work on our inland wildwater center. So it's a fully enclosed whitewater space that is built and designed by the company that built the U.S. National Whitewater Center in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah, it's really neat when you sit back and for people that don't know this, like the Ohio River already, where I guess it's what Silver Creek goes in, is really well known for its white water.
Correct.
So you have an opportunity to come and do that. And I've heard like they bring Olympic national teams here to train on those facilities and other things to that nature. So it's really, really cool when you sit back and think about like our little area of the country, right? Like Louisville, Kentucky area, southern Indiana. I'm a Clarksville resident, so I've been using the Greenway and space there for years. So it's really, really neat to know that we've got something so cool that's coming.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You mentioned the whitewater. The reason that Louisville, Kentucky is here, and the reason that southern Indiana, Jeffersonville, New Albany, Clarksville are here is because of the falls of the Ohio. And so on the Louisville side, there's the lock and dam system, and then on the Indiana side, there is the falls, and they are class 3 and 4 rapids that most people don't even know are there. And it's one of only 2 urban centers in the country that have a class 3-4 rapids in their urban core there. So it's really unique, and it does attract a lot of whitewater enthusiasts to this area for sure.
Yeah. So let's dive a little bit more in. The reason I'm here is obviously this is a charity organization, right? And people that know the podcast know me. They know I love doing charity work, things to that nature. Let's talk a little bit more about the event, and then we're going to dive into the actual whiskey, and we'll let Phil lead the whiskey today. I talk plenty, but let's talk a little bit more about the event. When is it? What's it look like? What are we doing?
Okay. Yeah, thanks. So we are doing our first Origin Park Bourbon Experience on November the 6th, 2025 at the Refinery North here in Clarksville, Indiana. And so we're very excited about it. And the reason we're doing it is for 2 reasons. Number one, Phil is one of my great friends in the area, and I've worked with him on a number of bourbon experiences.
Dave, we've never met before today. I don't know where this is coming from.
You got to quit telling those lies. We are best friends. And so Phil has helped me out in my career with a few bourbon experiences, and he is a fantastic storyteller and just very entertaining human being, and just has a great depth of knowledge in the bourbon world. And so I'm sure he can talk about that, about his background in that space. And so when I came to Origin Park, we were thinking of things that could build awareness for the park, help draw in additional friends of the park. Ultimately, I'm in charge of our fundraising, so hopefully donations to our park. And so as we were thinking about that, I thought, man, this would be really cool to highlight this, and then attach it to bourbon. And then we have a great connection with Starlight Distillery. Dana Huber is on our board, and so it just seemed like a natural connection. So that's how it started. And so we just think of it as an awareness campaign, a way for people to learn more about the park and for us to get to know people in the area. And it's a small event. So it's going to be capped at 100 people, so it's nothing huge, and so it's manageable, but I think it'll be a great evening.
And a chance to have some whiskey fun.
Exactly. Love
some
it.
Stellar whiskey fun.
Yeah.
Whiskey fun. That's probably a good way of describing anything we do with whiskey. Whiskey fun. I don't know. Anyway.
But if you want to find out more information about it, please go to our website, originpark.org, and it's we have an events page, and it's listed there.
Tickets on sale now.
Tickets on sale now.
And we even have VIP tickets for an added, an enhanced experience.
Exactly. So
give a little more, get a little more.
So our base ticket price is $125 for the event, and then we have a VIP ticket for $200, and with that you get a your very own barrel-picked bottle of Starlight Distillery bourbon, which we'll talk about, and then an Origin Park tasting class as well.
And it's November
the 6th.
Thursday, November 6th.
Yeah.
Grab 9 friends and get a table of 10.
Exactly.
Get a table.
Yeah.
Table of 10. See, that's a barrel of fun.
That's a barrel of fun.
That is a barrel
right
of
there.
fun.
All right, Phil, let's dive in. So you were able to go on the pick. I was not, so therefore I am going to be tasting this blind. You guys have, so we're going to kind of go from that. It looks like from here it's a 6-year Starlight toasted oak. I think somebody said it was French oak.
I believe so, yes.
And then I read that it was it's my favorite of the Starlight mash bills, the old Ted tried and true 60-20-20. So that's 60% corn, 20% rye, and 20% malted barley. What other statistics are on that magical bottle there?
I think you nailed the highlight of it. I'll tell you, and we'll get more into this. The reason, 104 proof.
104 proof,
52% ABV. It's a Kelvin barrel, and it has a Char 3 on it, and it's a 6-year, so it's aged 6 years. But we tasted through a lot, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But definitely the reason this was a winner was because of the toasted barrel and because of the French oak barrel. We tasted a few with similar mash bills and age. But let's sip. And then we'll discuss and we'll talk all things Starlight and this whiskey. So we'll get our nose in here. Nice, very forward nose.
Yep.
We'll say cheers. We brought the Glencairns, which
Cheers.
go clinky very well. Clinky,
you guys
clinky.
can clink. I'm all the way down here.
It's a 50-foot table, and he's like so distant we need binoculars to see him. We'll say cheers.
Cheers. Salud. Slancha. Just keep going back to this nose. French oak is so delicate and different. It gives off those robust oak notes, but really, really the vanilla comes through like usually so strong on these things.
Yeah, it's amazing how a lot of times when you have the French oak, it enhances those traditional notes we love in a regular oak barrel without compromising too much of the quality of the grain of the corn. I love this when we tasted it. I love it again. And I got to tell you, the coolest thing about this pick is we had Andrew in this warehouse that was dedicated to single barrel picks. And he was climbing the ricks. He was falling over barrels. He was taking the drill and the flashlight. He had some honey barrels in mind. And we tasted a little bit of everything. And for each one, he wouldn't tell us what it is until after we tasted it. So it was, as you know, barrel picks come in all shapes and sizes, and different people do it different ways. But this was down in the nitty-gritty, full of colorful stories. Some we can share, some we can't, and no stone unturned. And he basically said, we'll keep tasting until you find a barrel you like.
And I want to say this because I have not done... I've done a few, distillery tours. This was my first barrel pick, so I had nothing to compare it to. But Andrew, who's the director of spirits for Starlight Distillery.
Andrew Jordanic.
Andrew Jordanic is just a wonderful guide. Like, he is so friendly, seemingly says no to nothing. And just a great host and great storyteller. And yeah, like you said, we were going to taste until we found something that we agreed on. And so just a wonderful experience. So thank you to him, the Huber family, for just being great hosts for that event.
First and foremost, Andrew's a whiskey fan. It showed on his shoulder in every steps he does. He loves the art of bourbon and selecting barrels and crafting it. And second of all, he is a huge Starlight fan when it's the Huber family, everything they're doing there. And the general excitement about what they're putting up there was contagious. So, it's so much easy to get lost in the moment and think you've got a great barrel and then revisit it. And you're like, well, that's okay. This is phenomenal. Yeah. I am so glad we made this. I do think Starlight, when it comes to their products, not all 6 years are created equal. I think they either age their products really well or they select barrels that have been aged particularly well. I think for a 6-year, this tastes like it has even more years behind it. This could go toe to toe on age statement alone with any other 6-year on the market.
One of the things that I found, and I assume you have people that listen to your podcast that are not super bourbon knowledgeable and are trending in that direction. So I'm going to put myself in that grouping. One of the things that I thought was interesting on the barrel pick was, they have notes on the barrel lids themselves as they taste them over time, and that was very interesting because I hadn't experienced that. And so they're going in and they're tasting that, and then they're writing their notes and giving it a grade, and to see it change over time was really interesting to me, and that was something I wasn't aware of as a novice.
The family there is very distinct in how they do things, right? Like, I was actually the first podcast they were ever on. So, like,
wow.
I've known the Hubers for a long time.
Yeah.
They're great folks. But the first time I met with Christian and Ted, and matter of fact, Blake was still at Cornell at the time.
Oh, wow.
So, like, that's how it tells
Back
you how
in the
far
day,
back.
yeah.
So we had that discussion, and oddly enough, that was one of the things I brought up. We had that conversation. I was like, so why do you guys do this? And he goes, well, because honestly, we want to make sure that when we put things into the single barrel, selection, we know what we're offering people, right? And if it's something that we don't think is up to snuff, maybe what it will do is we'll go into one of our blends, and that way we can kind of hide some of those other barrels, or we let it mature longer to see what else happens. So they're very intentional about how they release their whiskey, which I tell people, a lot of people gave Starlight kind of grief for years and years, like, well, it's just super young. Well, yeah, I mean, they just started really making this stuff, 10 years ago? So, like, people that were trying it 5 years ago, a lot of their stuff was 4 or 5 years old. So, yeah, it had some youthful notes to it. But I think really it's 6 years, man. Like, their family estate products and all the other things that they've released have been just really, really solid. And I think part of that is because of the fact that they have such a great attention to detail on what they're releasing versus just putting stuff out to release it.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of Starlight's strength. It's a very deliberate product. They're putting everything is done with thoughtfulness and a look towards the future. And you tour distilleries, and sometimes you get the impression that they say, whatever tomorrow will bring, we'll do our best. And then you go places like Starlight, the ones that are largely family owned, and they talk about having a plan they want to be around in 2 centuries. They want to build and grow something that'll be well appreciated, sustained, and delivering for this generation and the next. And that philosophy usually translates into the products. Yeah. They're less worried about trends and what they can get on the shelf and more about what they're going to be selling 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years.
And, it's so interesting, the family's just amazing and what they have accomplished. And, if you went out there this weekend, you would see Ted, Dana there, among all the staff members. Yeah. It is all hands on deck, and they are so involved in everything they do. And I think that's really an amazing testament to the family and how invested they are in every part of their product that they deliver.
Yeah, 100%. So
what do you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say the notes on these things, like you get that rich vanilla, right off the bat. Like that's the first part of the mouth. What I really, really enjoying is that light, subtle, like honeysuckly, like floral note that's kind of coming through on the mid palate. Like that to me, I love that note. Like, and then the finish is like, even being 104 proof, it's fairly quick, but it's good. It's like right above the collarbone, and it's nice and steady.
What do they call it? They call it the Hoosier hug. Yeah. Yes, that's what I'm getting on the back end. I'm like, oh, I like that.
Yeah. A little bit of a whiskey sweater if you need some social distancing.
Whiskey sweater. Yeah. I think for social distancing it has to be at least 120 proof, right? Isn't that what but yeah, it's definitely it's got all the right feels right there. It's got the vanilla and the sweetness up front with where I guess it's probably coming from that corn. But I tell you, the one thing is, like, when you really sit back and you look at this glass, is the legs. I mean, the malted barley is really just giving this thing so much creaminess and mouthfeel, and you can see it on the glass.
Yeah, a lot of viscosity, a lot of sticking to the side of the glass, and you think that's from the high percentage of malted barley, the 20%?
I think malted barley, typically that's where it comes from. Like that's the main purpose of barley, is to give it, A, helps it ferment and break down, but also it gives it tons and tons of texture and creaminess. That's the reason. But it's also the most expensive grain, which most people don't use 20% malted barley. So that being said, like, that's one of the other reasons I love this mash bill. Like Ted, like his attention to detail on you've got enough rye to really, really do something, right? The majority of places, like, this is considered a high rye bourbon in most. Yeah, and
I think you can sort of taste that too, which I don't think I have a very distinct palate on this stuff.
Sure you do. You like what you like.
But I'm like, I feel like I get hints of that rye, because I do like rye bourbons, and so I'm like, I feel like I taste that.
You like rye whiskeys or rye bourbons? Or both?
Rye whiskeys.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, my bad.
That's okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood what you
Yeah.
were saying, because this is a rye bourbon,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
this is bourbon that's a high grain rye.
Yeah.
You also have wheated bourbon, so there's different, but if you like rye
Yeah.
whiskey's not bourbon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, if you gave this to me blind and told me it was a high rye, I would probably be surprised. And I think that 20% of rye grain is muted in point by the enhanced with the toast, bringing out those flavors of the barrel. You get those spicy notes in the front of your tongue and the side of your tongue that I normally get from something that's got 15 to 20 to 23% rye. Feel a whole lot less of that, at least on the first sip, more on the finish.
Right.
And I think that's because of the great toasted barrel. I love a good toasted barrel, man.
I love toasted.
I will never say no to a toasted barrel.
That marshmallowy note that kind of comes off on the mid palate,
Yeah.
typically that sweetness
I have
that
a
kind
friend
of
who
hugs
always says
out
that
of your
uses
jowls.
the word floofy.
Floofy?
Floofy notes, yeah.
Floofy
when
notes.
he doesn't like to say marshmallows.
I feel like people that are tasting bourbon are just making up words now.
Well, listen,
You run out of descriptive words like I'm going to make something up.
I can let you borrow the Woodford Reserve tasting wheel with 1,001 flavors, and you can see how many of those seem
Yeah.
out of left field.
It's insane the number of things that certain people pull. Like what I tell people, like floral is floral to me, right? But like there's very distinct things, and I tie everything to memories. So like when I tell people that I get a floral note, it's probably one of about three things.
Yeah.
It's either honeysuckle, violet, or dandelion. And the main reason why is because growing up as a kid, my grandma used to throw dandelion leaves or violet leaves in scrambled eggs, like different things like
Yeah.
that for the summer, just to do something different, you know. And then honeysuckle, I mean, anybody that's grown up in the Midwest, I mean, if you're a little kid,
It's everywhere.
and you've went and you've grabbed it and you've pulled it and you've tasted that sweet floral note that comes off that honeysuckle. So that's how I kind of tie my whiskey tasting notes, right? Now, I it's funny. For years and years, I said there's no way people get blueberry off of whiskey. No way. I've actually grown enough after eating 1 billion blueberries that I've semi-conceded, I could see where you could say that's blueberry. But it's just funny. Everybody's got different notes. Leather, for me, like instantly goes back to chewing on a baseball glove. When I was a kid in left field.
The little leather
string,
tag.
little
Let's tag, the last one.
I think
Board in the outfield.
Every kid's done that.
Wait,
Yeah.
that's your
It's
time.
that oily,
Yeah.
texture, right? So, it's weird. So, I tell people, whiskey is just a filling, right? And those fillings are tied to memories. And
So much. So that's what means no one's opinion can be worse than anyone else's, because it's all based on your own experience and senses.
Yeah.
There are no wrong answers, and I've heard a lot of doozies in my day. So
well, there could be little wrong answers, but
I used to tell people, when it comes to whiskey, there are no wrong answers. And then someone would get something out of left field. I go, wait, I meant to say that wrong. That's not an answer.
That is a completely
You're
wrong answer. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I get a lot of the floral and the spice up front in a really pleasant, balanced way, and then a nice long finish that's got some salted caramel notes and a nice amount of heat. You feel that 104 proof on the backside kind of settling in there. Booker Noah would joke that this is a bottle that could give you a case of level 4 bust head if you have too much, because it goes down nice and easy. It doesn't sip like 104 proof.
Yeah.
But your body still thinks it's 104 proof, so this certainly sips lower.
So let me ask you guys this, because you guys carry a lot more expertise in this.
God, I read a book on my way in here.
You're like,
I
I have no idea. But so we have a little bit of this barrel that we're able to taste today. And so if this, let's say we didn't touch this again, it was in the bottle.
Yeah.
And then, let's say a month from now and you tasted it, would it be different? Like, does it dilute over time?
Not after
What
a
are those
month.
flavors?
It's important to know the bottle's open, so you're going to be open to changes in flavors.
Yeah.
And Scott may have a different opinion on this than I do, but after about a month, you're okay. But you put this in the cabinet and you forget about it for close to a year. This bottle right here, it's a 375 milliliters, about half empty. It's going to start changing flavors on you probably first year and a half. But what are your thoughts?
Is it going to capture flavors out of the air? Like,
No.
what is?
No.
Okay.
I think air getting into whiskey just in general does kind of change what's going on, right? Like you have three very distinct things that cause whiskey to taste different. Oxygen is one, right? So you're getting most of your flavor from the grain and the barrel. The next one's going to be air and airflow. That's the reason you have angel share, right?
Yeah.
Like the more airflow you have, more likely you're going to have a higher, angel share. So therefore you're probably pulling some of the water out. You're getting higher proof, right? Different things like that. On what's Phil's saying is probably not wrong. You're probably going to taste a very, very similar thing. Now, what I will say is after a month or two, like you've got just enough air in that bottle to where there will be some subtle differences that you might be able to taste in the whiskey, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you maybe agree with that or not, Phil, but I think that there will be subtle changes at that point. But you're right. Once you hit about a year and a half, 2 years, I've got some old Dusties that I've had open for 2 or 3 years, but I make sure that, I do everything. I put a cork on it, then I saran wrap it, and I tape it shut. Like I do everything I can to keep as much extra things going on. But I've had bottles that I've had open for forever that are still delicious. But they have changed over the time frame. So it's all I say it's almost to each their own, but also to the point of like sometimes your opinion changes because your opinion changes, right? Your taste changes. Yeah. Like that barrel's going to taste different today if you had tacos for lunch than if you had steak for lunch.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, the biggest indicator in what's going to go on in most of the time. But I do think air causes a little bit of fluctuation in your palate.
Yeah. Great question, Dave Bell.
It was.
I've got 1,000 questions.
You've always been very curious
I'm
about
a
whiskey.
very curious individual.
A story you might appreciate is there was a distillery in Scotland, and they tried to get ahead of the angel share and the evaporation. They wanted to see what they could do to stop it because the barrels had always been watertight but not airproof. And so they were tired of losing 4 to 6% a year. So they took a barrel and they dipped the whole thing in wax, kind of like a Maker's Mark bottle. And they let it sit for 2 or 3 years. And they went back and they cracked it open, got through the wax. And sure enough, they put 52 gallons in there. There was 52 gallons when it opened, but it aged horribly. They didn't lose any evaporation, but because it didn't get any of the airflow, because it was completely airtight, it didn't age in a way that made it a tasty whiskey.
Yeah. It was interesting, back to the aging process and the rick houses there, and I'm sure this is true at every distillery, but I'll talk about Starlight. Andrew would talk about which direction the rick houses faces.
Yeah, crazy, right?
Where they're getting sun, either morning sun, afternoon sun. And so that was really interesting. There's this. There's so much science involved in this, and it's so interesting. I'm assuming when people first started distilling whiskey, they're just trying to figure.
They didn't care.
They're just trying to figure it out. But now it's so scientific, and
especially because these warehouses are built so they're not climate controlled. The vast majority of warehouses don't have any type of heating or cooling. So location, whether it's altitude or facing the sun, it's incredibly important. It matters. The barrel's in there for years. It makes a huge impact.
And I wonder, and Scott, you might know this. Their rick houses they're not tall.
They're not big. You're correct.
And so you see some. You go down, central Kentucky area, and they seem to be much taller. And I didn't know if that's because they're a little more elevated there, where they're.
No, it's really just about cost efficiencies for them, right?
Yeah.
They've got so many acres up there that if they need to put up another rick house, and their production is just now at the level to where it's going to take some time to fill some of those, and I think they're on rick house 5 now.
Yeah, maybe 6 if you include the small one they use for barrels.
Yeah. So you're talking about that, but literally they could throw up 1, 2, 3, 4, and they seem to they seem to be getting a bigger, wider footprint, right? So, but their rack system, I think the next rick house, if I'm correct, they're going to go to that K rack system that Cutter does.
I don't know. That didn't come up on our barrel selection.
So
have to go back.
That being said, I think that one will be a little bit larger of a rick house at that point. But I think for the most part, like when I think of the rick houses there, and I've tasted a lot of single barrels. We've probably bought, between myself personally, between the clubs that I'm involved with, and then the other liquor stores that I've invited out there to do barrel picks, I bet I've probably been on about 26 or 27 barrel picks out at Starlight.
Wow. Well,
so
you win.
I would say that most likely what I would call like those kind of, I think it's the southwest corner. So like if you go into rick house like 2 or 3 that's there kind of all by themselves off to the right-hand side there, that back corner to the back right-hand side, those are kind of, to me, those are the sweet spots because that's where the sun's really beating on
Andrew,
it. Right?
Andrew mentioned that. That's exactly right.
He did indeed.
Yeah.
So when you get those, like I think a lot of the family estate barrels have come out of there. Probably my favorite series are the 1600 series of the Rise. Like I've probably owned 10 or 12 of those bottles myself, right? That different barrel picks, different people have gone through, and then we've done 2 ourselves from that exact same like run of barrels. And I always laugh because I'm like, well, what's the barrel number? They're like, do you know? I'm like, dude, yes.
Yeah.
It's the barrel number.
we know barrel numbers, like, and we've tasted through stuff. So I always laugh about it. But yeah, to me, that seems to be kind of the sweet spot as far as those ones that are kind of getting that higher yield on the proof because of the evaporation and stuff. It's because of that direct heat that's coming off that side.
Yeah. It's an art and a science all right up into one.
Yeah.
Now, I will say they're doing a lot better job of moving barrels now than they ever have. So I wonder how that complexity will change as far as like, will they start moving a little bit more of those, like once they have 2 or 3 years there and rotate them to another rick house or something like that?
Yeah, Andrew made it clear the warehouse that we had the single barrel selection barrels in, they were placed there for single barrel bottling and other things like that they were mostly aged for their life in other warehouses and then moved in there. Right. And then we almost got run over by a forklift carrying barrels. So
we did.
We weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
Dave was tying a shoe, whistling Dixie.
Exactly.
Almost took him right to the backside.
Yeah. One more thing. I feel like this is like the Starlight Distillery fan show right now because I'm just so impressed with everything they do up there. And I have never, in my defense, I've never tasted a flavored whiskey like, honey or any of the.
Never Evan Williams peach make your way?
No,
Red Stag?
It's never entered my palate. But one of the interesting things, so they have some.
Knob Creek Maple never put over your pancakes?
So they have some flavored whiskeys that they're producing. And they grow everything on site, which is such
they give
a cool,
grain to glass a whole new meaning.
Yeah, they just do such a great thing of like if there's a honey flavored whiskey, those bees came from right there on their property, and so that's they're growing the peaches or for the peach flavored, so really interesting.
Yep.
And one of the barrels they broke out for us that was a pleasant surprise was a light whiskey.
A light whiskey.
Yeah. It was a little too high proof for some of in our group, but that was the last one we tried.
Oh, okay.
It was bottled close to 120, 130.
Was I still upright at that point of the tasting?
It's unclear. You're faking it quite well.
It sounds like you all had a much more long process than we did with the last charity pick I did there.
We were there for 4 hours.
Yeah. Wow.
You were sipping.
Yeah.
And then we were chatting, and he was telling us stories and answering all our dumb questions. It's funny. Barrel picks come in all different shapes and sizes. But when you got a guy like Andrew who's like, wait, you got to see this. And he's getting dusty as he's trying to make his way up to the third rick with the drill and the Whiskey Thief. Those are fun. They're just a fun way to spend a day.
Yeah.
They are fun. It's funny. I always tell people that, like, you should try their traditional whiskey because it's good. Mm-hmm. It's really good. Like, I especially love their Rise. But there's something about some of the finishes that like Starlight brought to the forefront, and it's because of their wine background, right?
Yeah.
Like they found some really, really nice wines that add so many different characteristics to some of their finished products that I tell people do not sleep on their finished bourbons or rye because they understand wine so well because of what they do for their first living, right? Mm-hmm. That they understand the complexities that go along with those and how well they marry together. So, there's tons of good stuff.
So the cool thing is we'll have this at the Origin Park Bourbon event on November 6th, and that the VIP ticket includes it. There might be bottles for purchase, but being the wonderful...
For donation.
For donation.
For donation.
Of course, very clear.
You'll be able to purchase it at the Huber's Winery and Starlight Distillery gift shop afterwards, but for our event.
You're stealing my thunder.
Sorry.
So if you don't come to our event and you want this, the wonderful magnanimous people at Huber's are so kind that part of the single barrel selection will go to the event and the other half will be in the gift shop.
Exactly.
Sell it up at Huber's and so you can get up that way. No, this is why.
I jumped the gun on you.
You're excited. It's an exciting day. So we're very proud of this barrel pick, and it'll be at the event and then also at the Huber's gift shop.
Yeah.
And lovely Starlight.
Yeah, they've just been wonderful to work with, and big fans of theirs, and thankfully they're big fans of Origin Park as well.
All this talking about, I might go take a hayride this Saturday. That sounds like a good way to spend the afternoon.
So one of our staff members went out there yesterday afternoon to pick up this bottle, and I can't directly quote her because it wouldn't do it justice, but she was like, oh my gosh, it was so busy at Huber's because it's fall break and it was families like crazy out there.
I guarantee this is, and we're recording this the very beginning of October. The next few weeks are going to be wild at Starlight. If you want to go out and have a great time, pick some apples, pick some pumpkins, join the family. You will see a Huber there working for sure, whether it's Christian, Blake, Dana, Ted, Lisa, whoever. You'll see somebody.
Pumpkin. Yeah, if you need a pumpkin. It's funny, I saw Dana at an event yesterday, and I was like, when do you get a break? Like, do you all have a slow time? And she was like, sort of January, February. But they're traveling to events and things like that. And so this is like the crazy time for them.
100%. So
it's remarkable how far this distillery has come in 5 years and what it's going to be like in 5 more,
I would agree with that. Like I said, I've been a big fan of the family for a long time. And they do good work out there. I'm kind of anxious to see how things land because they're one of the few people I know that play with char levels, different types of barrels. They've literally played with just about anything I can think of that makes their whiskey super unique.
Have you had a chance to try the 10-year release that was put out earlier?
I tried it.
Tell us about it.
So it was pretty good. It's definitely, it was different than what I expected, right? And I guess it's because of the fact that the blend was different based on the spice level. Like I expected it to be more like this, more of a robust, and maybe it's the toasted French oak on this, but I thought at 10 years that it would have had a way more of that heavy spice note. But it's more of their traditional, like, level. Like I've tried a lot of their 5 or 6 year old, bourbons that have tasted kind of very similar to that. It's got that floral note. It's got the really, really nice spice. It's got the caramel. It's got the vanilla. It's got all the things that you want in a good whiskey, right?
Tremendous.
But, I will say the one thing, like I have a hard time with price points everywhere, regardless of where you're at, whether you're the big boys and you're selling your premium product or anything like that. Price point is always one of the things I'm like, do you want to spend this much for a bottle?
That should be the question.
Yeah.
I think people, especially people in podcast, don't do people a service. It's like naive not to think that price isn't going to matter and how someone feels about a bottle.
And I think for me, I'm okay paying that price point because I'm okay supporting the family because I know what they do and I know how things are. There might be somebody that pays the amount of money that they're asking for that bottle.
What was the price
I think
point?
MSRP was like $249 or
Yeah.
something like that.
It's
Like, there's going to be some people that be like, oh, that's not a $250 whiskey.
But as time goes by, they'll have more 10-year stock, and that should come down. All right, okay, time will tell.
Time will tell.
All right.
I'll say time will tell. I think the fact that their production levels were so low at that time,
Yeah.
you might be right. In 15 years,
Okay.
because now their still's bigger. But I mean, some of the stuff was cut off their pot still, right? So I mean, the production wasn't high enough. So I'm kind of anxious to see what price point does do for them. Like I will say, their 7-year-old bourbons now are at least in a price point where I think most people will pay it and be okay with it. But like that's the problem with some of these smaller distilleries as they move up, and because their production levels are so low, you have a hard time with that piece of it. But they're
Hey,
making
Bill,
a fantastic
Did you know
product.
you can overage where you're going to bourbon that's been in the barrel too long?
You can overage it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Does it just start tasting like
I.W.
garbage?
Harper recently put out a bourbon that was aged, guess how many years? This is one of the oldest bourbons I've ever seen.
35 years.
34 years, almost right on the
Yes.
nose. It looks like motor oil in the bottle.
It's an oaky mess.
It was a
Fun
charity
fact,
release. I love a fun fact.
I officially became an adult at age 35. So
There you go.
What happened
that's-
at 35?
I just
That was
decided. I just decided. I'm like, I should probably grow up at this point in my life. Hey, I have a question.
I had a question.
Oh,
No, you
oh,
go
you,
first.
already, you cut me off the
question
first
last
time.
I know.
Yeah, stay in your lane, Phil. Come on, Scott.
Oh, now
Phil,
I'm
Phil,
the
you can.
resident
I'm just
professional.
trying to get rid of my question for when
Phil,
you're
you
done.
can. Phil, you can answer as well. So Scott, you mentioned Ted's recipe, the 60-20-20. Do bourbons, if you have a let me say a refined palate, like could you taste a bourbon and be like, oh, this tastes like a Starlight bourbon? Like is it that distinct on some of these bourbons? Like
I would say there are definitely brands that have very distinct flavors, right? But that's a whole nother show and a whole nother rabbit hole.
all right, that sounds like an invitation. I'll be back.
Great. No,
But
same bad time. Same bad channel.
just to give kind of a tip or a nod to that, I'll just say let's just give Old Forester as an example, right?
Yeah.
Bananas, fruity notes, things like that. Like immediately. when-
Flintstone Pebbles. Some people
I
say.
think Jack Daniels tastes like
see,
bananas.
So for me, like the Flintstone, I get more of that off like Tennessee whiskey, like Dickel or
Yeah.
different things like that. But like, yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like, but like, there's very distinct notes that go with certain brands or labels. Starlight will definitely at some point have something that really really sticks out. For me, I think Starlight is more of it's not as much the flavor as it is the feel. Like their bourbon is it's got a ton of chew, and it's because of that heavy malt, right?
Okay.
Like you will drink a lot of bourbons, and that's the thing. Like you won't be able to taste this and be like, oh, that's a 20% mash bill, blah 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 blah. What you're gonna do is you're gonna taste it, and you're like, man, that's really really hugging every bit of my mouth because of that extra malted barley. And I think that will be the distinguishing factor more so than the actual rye spice or the amount of corn or anything like that in there. Because there's tons of bourbons out there that make whiskey or different mash bills that are very kind of somewhat similar, like Four Roses, they got that 20%, So there's other things that are making, but that malted barley being such a massive number makes a massive difference, I think.
I'm with Scott. I agree. The more, not to overuse the term craft, but the more individually distillers are making it, the harder it is to identify blind a product from that. Something like Jim Beam, who has a giant column still that's running 24 hours a day, and then the variation comes from not in the mash bill, the distilling, but the aging and the combining of barrels. Something that has a more universal mingling of 1,000 barrels, that's easier to recognize as a product from that distillery because they're all almost variations on the same theme. And people who are better at this than I am can usually do a blind tasting from a major distillery and say, I recognize a wild turkey mash bill when I have one, or I know something that's Buffalo Trace mash bill number 2.
Okay.
But you get those larger with the larger column stills and the people who are producing tons of whiskey.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated with people's palates. Like I'm not a food person. Like I eat because I need to survive, not because I love food.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're ever interviewed to be a food critic, and the question is, why do you eat?
Yeah, it's like
don't let that be your
only
answer.
to survive, to keep me from being hangry.
Cancel
That's
our
it.
dinner plans
Yeah.
for next Saturday. Gee, many cricket.
Yeah, so it's always interesting to me when people really notice flavors and distinct things, and then I was wondering of like, oh, I wonder if they can like really pick up on those things.
Scott and his friends do a great job on their podcast of getting down to the nitty gritty and still making it in relatable ways, and it just comes from practice and time. I'm guessing. I don't know.
It does. I mean, and I tell people like when people said, "Man, Scott, you really know how to break that down," and it, like honestly, it started out with tasting kits, right? Like I bought all these different things that like you could smell aromas and different things, and I just really honed my skill and a wheel. Like Phil was nice enough to bring you a little whiskey wheel type thing over here. It's not really a wheel, but it's whatever. But it's got all the flavor notes.
Have you been studying it, Dave?
So
I'm like, I can't even read these words.
Well, it's probably because you don't have your glasses
Exactly.
on. But,
I'm an old guy now. I can't read it.
but I think that's the thing. You can hone just about anything. Like when I started drinking beer, I mean, we were all Miller Lite guys, right? When we were 18, 19 years old, and then you decide, well, I'm going to try this and I'm going to try that. I've still never gotten to the point where I love an IPA, but like I can definitely tell you different notes on different things of whether it be a stout or a porter or something else out there, right? So and I think wine people will do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Like anybody that like spends time with their craft. I mean, cigar people tell me like all these crazy things they get off cigars.
Yeah, that blows my mind.
Yeah, and I'm like, really? And I'm like, okay, yeah. I mean, I kind of see where you're coming from, but but I also will tell you this: human beings, we are easily influenced.
That's so true.
So if I say, oh, I get vanilla on this, you're probably going to look for it and you'll find it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
so I was just
I
at
try
an
not
event.
to give tasting notes because of that.
I was just at an event where we had outdoor tastings in a tasting tent on the campgrounds of the Kentucky Horse Park campground. So grass floor, fire.
I'm getting
outside.
manure. I'm
and
getting
a lot
manure
of people are
tasting.
getting notes of grass and smoke, which I guarantee you were not in the whiskey, but it became from the surroundings and
Right.
the influence. There's
100%.
right on top of grass, and there's 2 fires going to the side, and they put it in their nose. They're getting
very
I'm getting
smoky.
A smoky. I was like, I promise you, there are no
Yeah.
smoky notes in this Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey.
Right.
So not only was it the mindset, it was the environment they were surrounded in.
100%.
When they do the fancy things like the San Francisco Spirit Awards, no perfume, no cologne allowed. They cut you off after so many pours so you don't go nose blind. It's amazing how much the environment contributes.
Are there so they have these obviously these tasting events. Are they like competition tasting events of like who can get it right?
I mean,
there's
two separate things.
Thing?
There's the awards where they have a panel who aren't being, given kudos for their ability to pick, and then the winner is the bottle itself.
Yeah.
As far as tasting events where you win something from picking out a blind pour, I don't know. That'd be fun. I don't know of any of those, really.
I don't know of anything like that either.
Should we start one?
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted.
Scott, I have a question for you.
All right.
Dave stole my thunder. I thought this was fascinating because this was from the Kelvin cooperage, and different barrels came from different spots, and they were clearly on the barrel heads marked where they're from. And so when we asked Andrew where he got his barrels, it was an answer I've not heard before. And he basically stroked his mustache and he looked at me and said, wherever we can get them. And it seems like the industry has shifted for a distillery the size of Starlight, where they're going to whatever barrel cooperage wants their business and is able to provide a good partnership.
That is probably the most truest statement. I will say, to me, that's probably been the biggest change in the bourbon industry over the last 5 years, because there's been so many NDPs and other things that have opened that finding barrels has become extremely hard. Now, the good thing is for Ted and them, and like I said, I give them a ton of props, is the fact that they're okay with going outside the box.
Yeah.
And
rolling the dice, right? And taking a risk on a new barrel maker.
100%. But they're not even necessarily using new barrel makers. Like, they're getting outside the box, and like Sago Monroe. Let's just use that one as a primary example. They make fantastic barrels.
This is a barrel maker?
Yeah.
What's their name?
Sago Monroe.
Never heard of them. That's
Starlight's got hundreds of them
Okay.
in their rick house. Now, it's a French cooperage.
Oh, yes. He did mention this one.
yeah.
But they have American oak barrels,
Yes,
right?
right. He mentioned that.
There are companies in Taiwan now making barrels. Great Midwest out of Ohio. You like Zach Cooperage. You've got ISC, Independent Stave. You got Kelvin Cooperage. Like, the number of barrel manufacturers now is growing drastically. But the problem is that, I mean, what was it? Maybe 4 years ago, Buffalo Trace, or 5 years ago, they dropped their it was like the 4 millionth barrel.
Yeah.
And like last week, they just
Number
distilled
9.
their 9 millionth.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
think about that. Like,
Yeah.
they've been in business for how many years? And then literally in the amount of time, in the last 5 years, they've done more than they did in the first 60 years they were open.
It's nuts.
So, I mean, production's crazy, right? And to be bourbon, it has to go
Be
into a
single
new
use, yeah.
charred oak barrel. So,
Which is unbelievable.
I think it's a
to
hurdle
of
that a lot of people don't think about when they think about the distilling process. We're
They
a rare exception. No one has their own cooperage, and where are you going to get it from? And
Yep.
you hear stories like ISC saying, or at least saying publicly, no more new customers because they're full to capacity with the people they have under contract. And I know that's not locked in stone.
right.
And no one ever should take anything I say their word for it, but it opens the door for Starlight to try and find different partners for different products, which
And
is
they are
fascinating.
And like I said, you're going to find this at Gilman Rose out there. You're going to find there's a big Spanish cooperage, and I can't think of their name right now, but like they're making a ton of great American oak barrels.
Is it El Barolo? Because that's what I would name my cooperage.
El
if I-
Barolo.
That's what I would name. I know.
That's a
It's the,
well done.
that was someone else.
It's
That
a
wasn't
bad
me.
joke.
Wah.
Let me ask you guys this, because I'm endlessly curious. What is
Except about food.
No, it's about bourbon. It really is. What's the state of the bourbon industry these days?
Strong.
Because everything you hear are people are drinking less.
Yes.
Thank you, Andrew Huberman podcast, for telling people not to drink alcohol. And there's other things on the market. So what is the state of the bourbon industry, do you think? I know it's just your perception,
I'll
but
let Scott answer that first.
I'm scared because I think Phil just said strong in the back there. If I heard him correctly, I will say, as someone who has a buddy that brokers barrels and I help him broker barrels on the side. Mm-hmm. It's gotten softer over the last 18 months than I've seen it in the last 10 years. Now, that being said, there's still a ton of people coming out with NDPs. There's still a ton of people that are opening distilleries. I'm anxious
I'm sorry, what's an NDP?
non-distilling producers. So those are companies that go and source their barrels and whiskey from other, other individual companies,
and then put their label on it.
Put their label on it. Correct. Yeah. So there's tons of that going on. My fear is that what you're saying, right? Like, people are going California sober.
Yep.
For one. For two, you
I
have.
appreciate that you know that term. So.
Yeah, you have quite a few other people that what happened to bourbon initially. So like that 1950s, 1960s, right? People didn't want to drink dark water, or actually it would have been like 1960s, 1970s. They didn't want to drink what their parents drank.
Interesting.
So
They had
went
great
to
ads back then,
They went
though.
to gin, vodka, clear liquids, right? Tequila, things like that. So I think there will be a cyclical piece with bourbon. I'm now like, I love bourbon. I drink bourbon all the time. But I'll tell you right now, I'm a hot mess looking for aged Armagnacs, Calvados, cognacs, things like that, because to me, those things are terrific. And now you're starting to see people that are getting heavy age-stated rums. So like we're going to go through a cycle, I think, in my humble opinion. Now, how does that affect the bourbon industry? I still don't think we're going to see Weller on the shelf anytime soon, just sitting out there. And I think that's because of marketing.
Yeah.
I think we could.
Yeah.
But Buffalo Trace is never going to allow that, because they'd much rather come out with Weller CYXR instead of, just making, another 1,000 barrels of regular, 107 or special reserve. So
Speaking of Buffalo Trace, I saw some random post on social media the other day, and I guess they do their special release. They announce their releases.
They do
and
now,
The,
yeah, they
the
announce in
parking
advance.
lot was packed.
Right.
Yep.
Hundreds of people waiting. I forgot even what the beverage was, but there was.
Stag.
It was
Is that what it was?
Stag.
Okay, yeah.
Stag
And I was-
Junior, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Phil.
So I think the foot is off the gas a little bit on this bourbon boom we've had, but I think in general things are strong. I think that maybe the highest moments of bourbon frenzy maybe going in the rearview mirror, but I think American whiskey in general has positioned itself very well to serve in the cyclical downturn that we're inevitably get as new spirits come in, whether it's the cognacs, the aged rums, the mezcals, the tequilas. I don't think we'll have a bust in the same way. I think the first people starting to feel the pinch are those who decided to set up a distillery and ride the wave without much of a financial plan or a vision, and those are the ones who find themselves in a little bit of financial trouble. I also unfortunately think the bourbon barrel brokers are the ones who are feeling the pinch the first in the same way. But I think the major names who have been around for a long time, who are the biggest producers, will feel the pinch, and maybe they won't see the double-digit sales growth per quarter they've had over the last 10 years. But I think everyone is set up for a long time to do quite well. I think part of it too is that these distilleries pay a lot of money to be forecasters and finance guys to look ahead. And, they wouldn't be big and large opening new distilleries like Heaven's Door is doing in tiny Pleasureville, North Kentucky, or building new warehouses at record pace like Buffalo Trace continues to do. So while the love affair may be cooling down a little bit, I think overall the state of bourbon continues to be strong. And it may just be wishful thinking. What do I know?
Yeah.
But I mean, just based on allegorical information and evidence. And I'm not saying there aren't pain points and that some people are starting to hurt, but I think overall things are going to continue to be strong. Like Scott says, we'll see. I mean,
I have another question. And Scott, you cut me off whenever we're done with our time.
We're going to have to cut soon.
Okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I have one more question because
longest, worst podcast this guy's ever done.
I'm endlessly curious.
These knuckleheads. Where's buddies that are?
We probably should have done this in 2 podcasts. I guess.
Scott,
I feel like we're running on to poor Origin Park here.
Scott, you're in the finance world, so you might have a better gauge on this. I don't know, but like, is there venture, capital, like these large-scale financing groups entering into the bourbon space?
That's who owns the Bardstown Bourbon Company.
Okay, that's what.
Yeah. So the venture capital groups have definitely bought some. They own Bardstown Bourbon. They also own Green River. So that's one big corporate conglomerate that has bought into those.
Yeah.
And
are they just speculating, or are they like
no?
They're full in, right?
Okay.
They're full in, right? So, but I think what you're seeing more of than even that, right? Like it takes a lot of money to buy those type of businesses, right? You're seeing like Caskex, like I'm sure you've seen their advertisements on Facebook or anything like that, right? So you've got a group of guys that threw a ton of money at each other. They paid 1 or 2 dudes or 15 dudes. I don't know how the business is structured, but they go and literally they were buying massive stores of brand new make whiskey, and they're just letting it sit until they can flip it to make their profit, right?
I get calls from them and their competitors several times a week saying, wouldn't I be interested?
Yeah. So I think that's where, like, I think Phil might be somewhat right in the fact that, like, those dudes I think are going to get a bigger because, like, I can buy 7-year-old barrels now for less money than I was paying for them, 7 months ago.
Oh, wow.
Like, and I'm talking a significant amount less.
Yeah.
So that being said, like, the people that bought this off of a speculation and because it had gotten so hot, so high, like I think some of those people are going to get hurt worse than the big boys, like what Phil's saying.
Well, the big boys cashed the check in by selling those barrels to them in the first place, getting rid of the inventory and taking it at the high points.
And they're getting paid monthly, to
hold the barrels.
Well, I mean, just look at New Make. All right, let's go back to the history of it. So I want to say it was 2019. You could buy a barrel of New Make for around $495. Last year, if you could get a contract, well, maybe 18 months ago, if you could get a contract, like if you were just one of the lucky NDPs that were like had a decent relationship with MGP or Bardstown or whoever, you were probably paying close to $1,100. Today, a New Make contract $795.
Wow.
So you do the math. Like there's a softening of the market.
Yeah.
I just got offered today to buy some 4-year-old distillate for basically the same price as New Make.
Wow. Yeah.
Because some people are starting to hurt. So it's one of those crazy things when you look at things.
Yeah. Is it like the stock market? You just wait it out, or
yeah?
Like, okay.
Yeah, I think you just wait it out. I mean, it typically only increases in value as it gets older.
Yeah.
I will say there is a softening in the market, because some of the NDPs did not plan well, as Phil said. Like they just went in like, hey, we can make money doing this, blah blah blah. Didn't think about it, and now they're like, oh wow, tax bills due.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating world. I don't know much. Most of the bourbon I buy is in a bottle on a shelf. So buying the barrels, and that's great stuff. And I know very little about it.
So fair enough.
Dave, tell us about Origin Park.
So November the 6th, Origin Park.
It's going to be so fun.
Bourbon Experience hosted by Phil Talks Whiskey. Our presenting sponsor, Starlight Distillery. Thank you so much, Starlight, for that. And so we're going to have a great panel discussion, specialty cocktail from Starlight. Very limited tickets. It's capped at 100 people. And so it's at the Refinery North here in Clarksville, Indiana. And so we're so excited, and we'd love for you to join us. It's going to be a great event. And Scott, I would like to offer you 2 tickets to the event.
Hey.
I'd love for you to join us if possible. And for you and a guest.
Hot dog. I love that.
Hot diggity.
Hot diggity. If they want to talk to you or have any questions, how do they reach out to you?
Yeah, they can go to originpark.org. And so my contact information is on there, and it's got information about the event as well.
Gotcha. If they want to make a generous donation to the future of Origin Park, are you their man?
They would like to do that too. They can always
we'll
call
definitely
me.
let them do that. And if you can't figure that out, you can always email me, scottminute@bourbonbarreltalk@gmail.com. I will put you in touch with David. Make sure you also hit us up on either Facebook, Instagram, or the X. hit the subscribe button. That way you get our episodes as soon as they drop on Sunday mornings at 6 a.m. This is Scott, Dave, and Phil signing off from Bourbon Barrel Talk.
Hey,
Peace
thank
out.
you so much.
Thank you.